All right, I think we're live. Hello and welcome everyone. Today we're back live with our friends Sandro of SIPS and Enable Security, and also Shlomi Gutman, who is CEO of Voice Center, and both are very, very good friends of mine, and I know them Shlomi for a few years, and Sandro been with us a few times already here. So, today we are going to talk a little bit about SIP security and also, just about everything going on around. Hey Shlomi, hey Sandro, how you guys doing?
Very good, very good. Very happy to be here, and thank you for joining us and making this happen.
Yep, I'm doing very, very, very well. Thanks for the invite.
Oh yeah, no worries. My pleasure again. To get started, I guess I know Shlomi very well. But for the sake of our audience, maybe Shlomi, you can talk a little bit about yourself and.
I would be happy to do it. Not too much. I don't like to do it too much, but I am Shlomi. I'm the CTO and the founder of Voice Center. We are a VoIP cloud provider. We have already been in the field for 14 years, and we are pretty much leading the solution of a contact center for call center over the cloud. For us, dealing with security over the SIP was part of the struggle as getting VoIP into the cloud, and being taken in such an occasion and being able to promote and get any changes of idea to making the SIP and the VoIP communication more secure is a very happy thing for me to do, and I'm really proud for being here. Thank you, Max, and thank you, Sandro, for being here with us.
Oh, yeah. Have you know any of Sandro's work?
Yeah, of course. First of all, my switches, I think I got at least 20 times a month someone cursing, who is this vicious guy and why he's existed? Why they made this kind of enemies for us? And then they get in black somehow, thanks to great technologies and efforts for a lot of open source projects that we are using to defend our system. But it's really, I think that it's amazing thing to understand that the ability to check vulnerabilities and is also, of course, making some people get annoyed by it, but it's really making the ability to check the vulnerabilities and lower pricing and lower ability, which make most of the world much more secure. And the abilities of any one of my security guys or even my NOC guys to have a Kali running and have a SIP vicious command line to defend the network. It's something that for us probably save a few dozens of thousands of dollars, but it probably for the world itself make it much of a better place. And I must say, for example, I don't know how much people appreciate some kind of contribution that penetration testing have, but it is a. And thank you for that.
Thanks for the kind words. Usually I get much worse.
Well, people just don't understand it, I guess.
The worst I had was I was at a conference and I gave my presentation and spoke about SIPVicious, the whole story when I started writing it and so on, and then explained the attacks that other people have been doing with SIPVicious on voice over IP providers and so on. And then at the end of the presentation, this guy jumped up and asked me a question in front of everyone, like, So are you saying that you're the guy who wrote SIPVicious? And then, and then he asked me, how do you sleep at night? I'm like, yeah, pretty well. Back then I didn't have sleeping problems. So yeah, that's how it goes. But I think more recently people have been more receptive to security tools and security reports. Somehow, yeah, I think there's somehow the industry got a bit more educated about this relationship between, having, if you don't have security tools to test for security vulnerabilities, then the attackers' adversaries are still going to develop their own. I mean, I see them using SIP CLI and so on. So they use even Zoiper. They used to use to do these attacks. So they're still gonna manage, right? So then it's important to have security tools that are effective and do the job for the administrators and the defenders and people who are doing a good job. Of course, what you get is, especially with open source software, is that anyone can use it, right? So yeah, you can. I know that it's downloaded by a lot of attackers.
It's naive to think that if it wasn't those tools, it wouldn't be any other. I think that what's not naive in here is like understanding that it's the obligation of any service provider to implement it such of security penetration as part of their promising for the customers, and the idea of having those tools being there for providers not under heavily cost, those what's actually guarding the people, of course, much more than hurting them, because as you said, people will have their own tools.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And actually, Shlomi was asking. You have not only SIPVicious, which everyone knows and loves, but you have also some enterprise, right? Kind of solution for commercial customers, Sandro.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do I go ahead?
Yeah, of course. Very interested to hear about.
Yeah. So there's the open source SIPVicious, right? And then there is the SIPVicious Pro, which is what we're mostly working on in terms of software. And it's kind of not just a rewrite, but it's a complete different code, and the goal is to have a professional tool set for doing offensive security tests on real-time communications. So we're not just focusing on SIP, even though it's called SIPVicious, but we're also looking at other things like RTP. So we attack RTP proxies, like SIP over WebSocket. In the future, we will have XMPP support because we have internal tools that already do these things. We already have a tool called XMPP Scanner, for example, and so we can port some of that code, polish it up, and add it.
How much of the WebRTC world is being implemented there? Like, it's something that looked to me like the Wild West, just for Google changing the rules so much and the browser changing everything. Like, how much the WebRTC stack is being vulnerable, from your opinion?
It's hard to answer the question because there's vulnerabilities in the WebRTC stack itself, right? And then there are vulnerabilities in the WebRTC infrastructure, which is kind of now with the WebRTC stack, the SDK, and so on. You do see vulnerabilities from time to time, and they are really interesting stuff. But on the infrastructure side, we haven't seen a lot of public reports. Mainly our public report for the term servers.
That was a big one. Mm-hmm.
Which affected lots of providers, but Slack had a bug bounty, so we kind of made that part public because we could. But there were lots of other providers as large or bigger than Slack that had these problems in their Tern servers. And of course, when it comes to anything related to signaling, it's a lot of custom signaling, right, with WebRTC. So we've been doing security testing and finding security problems in signaling server-side implementations, but they were all for our clients, which we have a non-disclosure agreement with. So we haven't been publishing anything yet on that front. We hope to, but yeah. And the things like the TLS, yeah, we did find some issues. There was one issue with Slack as well that is public, actually, affecting their DTLS setup. They were using Janos with an old certificate that was committed to the Git repository.
Oh.
I remember that.
So there was that. It doesn't seem to be as huge of a deal as it appears to be. To me, based on my analysis, it seems that it was not.
Yeah, and the moment it's being changed, it's the second it's being changed. It's not, the problem with most of the vulnerabilities on open source projects, as I see it, is that even after they are getting fixed, they are either from an update perspective, and a lot, as we are seeing, a lot of providers and operators that are not maintainingly updating the security updates for the open source.
Well,
that is where I'm seeing most of
imagine how it is with the proprietary stuff. It's much worse.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm really happy to hear that, because I'm like feeling way, Shlomi, you are saying shit over here about the open source abilities about getting security. And you say, man, like at least it's all of us together in this game and not like different dozens of companies that hiding it behind and nobody update their software because of it as well.
Yeah, well, my impression is that with open source, you have a bit more control, but with closed source, so I think my impression is that a lot of the closed source solutions don't get updated because the vendor is afraid of changing something and so on, but the vendor doesn't give so much.
No, I can tell you as a service provider, for me to do any update over the system, we have around 100,000 different seats around the world connected to our server. Any different small change that we can do can have affected and can lose us customer, and this fight between getting the most advanced and secure technology to the customer and giving the business silence that they need to do their business, there is like a very thin line between of it. But the problem that you need to find yourself somewhere in the middle, and there is a lot of operators that just saying, all right, we will close our network from the outside and never update anything. And those are the most vulnerable network that I would see.
Yeah, and the thing is that you cannot really, if you're a big operator, it's very difficult to close it because there will always be some kind of,
Yeah, I think this is something that COVID really changed in the perspective of IT industry, like from security. Like before COVID, a lot of the effort was around getting those closed island of network that will serve only from a very physically and will be, when COVID came, everybody needed to connect from everywhere to everywhere. And this illusion of being able to get this private island that only I connected to already been disappeared by most security experts. The idea today about, I think that is something that COVID changed the way that security guys think, and that's great because it was always some kind of a fight between security guy and the business about how we should limit the business not to get too much unsecure. And in the end, COVID brought a different equation to the world that by default you are unsecure, and now you need to get your second and third line of defense. And you cannot only depend on you being isolated in this island.
I agree. I mean, there are two types of, let's separate them. But there are the security guys who liked having closed networks and so on, and then there is, of course, now it's what's popular now. I mean, zero trust sort of approach, right? And this has been coming a long way. Google made it popular and so on, where you don't assume that you have an internal network and an external network and that they are different, but you assume that everything is exposed, and therefore you have to authenticate accordingly, give access control rights accordingly, and so on and so forth. And this is definitely the way forward. We cannot keep thinking of the walled garden and all of that. It's impossible anyway. As soon as you create a new service, you want to expose it, right?
I must say that was like our main motivation of developing the JWT authentication over OpenSIPS, because like even as a SIP basic authentication level is for 100,000 of devices around the world was looking very naive from that perspective, especially when you are distributing more and more soft phone and mobile application, and more of the devices themselves have the ability to do the full stack of OAuth and all of the refresh token mechanism and everything that you need to make sure that the device that's been exposed will not be exposed you to the rest of the future. I think that, like, generally, I think that, like, most of this, if you will look from a basic web perspective, if you will only use basic authentication, you will be very naive. Like, none of the, and in the SIP, like 90-something% of the VoIP devices are based on a basic authentication perspective.
That's just authentication,
yeah.
Which is a step forward than basic authentication, but it's still not ideal. No, it's still from the year, I don't know, 2000 and something. So yeah, it needs to be.
Well, we've seen some progress on that, although I mean, it's yet to be seen.
I think that, like, but in the end of the day, the SIP need to be involved as the other infrastructure of IT and cloud communication in the world, and having SIP need to be a part of another endpoint of any OAuth authentication or any other single sign-on service. And in the end, again, most of the users, either they are using Android, if they are using iPhone, if they are using Microsoft, they are already being authenticated by JITs. They've been using the device. And the SIP community needs to take advantage and to be more involved in part of this level of authentication that anyone have already. And we were being a little bit out of the game until we will start getting more and more JWT, but it's not like the JWT specifically. It's the concept of authentication provider that are outside of the protocol themselves or the service themselves.
Makes total sense from an authentication point of view. Then, of course, you can focus on on the authentication server, which is kind of centralized, and you don't need to worry about these different credentials all over the place. You just need to worry about that part in terms of authentication for the users. Of course, you're going to have authentication with the JWT token. It needs to be authenticated separately, but that's going to work through signatures, right? So that's kind of a much more sane way of doing things.
The way that the providers today advertise their public signature in very public way, so you can get, for example, from Google, like the web service that giving you a JSON of all of the valid keys that they might be parsing over OAuth authentication, and then you can validate over your own side it already. And the idea of getting away from being a single point of authentication that is being vulnerable because it's very static, to get it something that is very dynamic, that in any way people are using. And for me as a service provider, even on a case of covering our REST, like great, we're using the authentication level of any authentication provider that you want, but I think it's a fight that shouldn't belong to the real-time communication, but into the authentication provider. And we need to find ourselves as community integrated into it, especially when it's already open source. It's not like it's free. So any customer that want to have Facebook, that want to have Google, that want to have anything, can get his own authentication provider. It's not like we are making the open source community being used by something that costs money. Anyway, there isn't anyone that you know about the planet that doesn't use an account in one of those obvious authentication providers there in the market already.
I'm trying to get off them, but yeah.
Just for the discussion, like for Google, did you succeed? No Gmail account?
I'm kidding. It's impossible. It's not possible anymore. It's like.
Yeah. Well. I guess at the time when SIP was designed, there was no like such global providers, right?
True.
It was all like island kind of based. So
no.
protocols being
Digest
designed.
authentication was the next big thing, I suppose.
When the trees were big.
Before it was enough CPU to power to get them explode in 5
One
minutes.
question for you. Do you know what other open source voice over IP projects implement JWT? Obviously, OpenSIPS, because you guys contributed it, but does it supported by Camellia or Asterisk or FreeBSD?
I didn't saw anything that was. Generally, again, by Asterisk, I did few guys that was approaching me that they did their own AGI, that, based on AGI that get the headers, and then you can do whatever you want anyway. But it wasn't by the Asterisk itself. Again, it's not a wild guess to assume that the Asterisk development will be a little bit slowed down after all of the different changes there. But I didn't saw any movement in any of them. I think that from Media Gateway perspective, as they are approaching more local offices and PBXs and they are not looking at them, and it's a field that is more open to any of the global providers and the cloud provider that are implementing some kind of a SIP proxy. And I'm sure, and I hope that someone will take our code and patch it to Camellia soon. I would probably, I don't know if Vlad or other guys will happy for me saying that, but no, just kidding. We'll be happy to see it again. I think that generally, as a security purpose, it should be, I think that beside any fight in any open source projects have the getting security for everything, any security tools should be something that should be adapted as widely as fast as anyone can do. I think this is one of the most important obligations we have as open source developer, that if you want to say the ethics that we never been written, but it's something that need to be out indeed there.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, we'll probably do the next OpenSIPIt, I would say, in the next 3 to 4 months. So, if you will find or convince anyone else to test against your implementation, that would be definitely interesting. And what we found, actually, it's kind of a chain effect. Basically, that's how I did with that SHA-256 and SHA-512. I basically implemented it in my own SIP stack, our CP-B2BA, and then I used that to kind of bootstrap work on OpenSIPS patches, and we kind of and then Sandro brought his own implementation for the first OpenSIPIt. And actually, those guys, other guys.
Did you ever implement it in any of the SIP client of the SIP.js or anything like that?
I'm not sure yet. I believe. I don't know if you can call it a client. At least Dave Horton implemented it in his Jambons, which I believe JavaScript based. So code can be borrowed, I guess. But the story does not end there. I think on the last OpenSIPIt, also FreeSwitch brought their own implementation, which was kind of still work in progress. But it also caused us to risk guys to also patch something up. So it's kind of it works. I would say it's not a fast process, but at least I think we pushed it. I
think by the way, it will always be those two different purposes of authentication. There is always the username and password, and there is always the third-party authentication. And any project should understand that you need to have a strong abilities in both of them. You cannot have only third parties or can only have SIP username-based authentication. So, absolutely, I think that again, it's two lines that going together that need to get progress and get more adapted by the community. And I would say, I think that the problem that we are always running in getting those implementation over the servers, but I think for me, the first thing I did after Vlad finished with JWT over the OpenSIPS was going to run over SIP.js and push the code there to have the JWT implementation. I think it's the important thing about it. It's also making it, spreadly wide between this client SDK, if it's all of the SIP stack, if it's Linfon over the mobile stuff, if it's a JS SIP of any other, it's important thing to each one of those implementations to get to the client, because otherwise they are getting too theoretical.
Yeah, yes. Well, in this case, yes, because you're dealing with the authentication kind of client-based. Because very digest you can all use between providers, right? If I send in 1,000 channels to you, can authenticate by digest.
But again, I think if we are seeing what COVID taught us, that the most threat is really from the client perspective in this case, from having so many thousands of devices being connected to you in that case. I think for me at least this is the security challenge that was more growing over the COVID time, and I think that it would be going more because work from home mentally will not disappear. At least like from the, between the IT security manager that was fighting everyone will not get connection for home, and the soul of the lazy employee that won't work for home in comfort place. I'm really happy to say that the lazy employee comfort zone of working from place won. Because again, technology will never need to be the barrier of physical. Technology needs to adapt itself to the physical needs of human beings. So.
Yeah, I guess so. All right. Well,
Well,
had a little bit of nice chat. So, Sandro, you've been doing quite interesting work with OpenSIPS guys recently. I was pretty much curious about that.
No, not yet, actually. So we didn't yet start, but they've been announcing it and so on. And so essentially, what we did till now is we discussed with the OpenSIPS people like Bogdan what they want to focus on, and we came up with a proposal on what they want to focus on in terms of security testing when we do a security audit of the OpenSIPS software. And yeah, we came up with a proposal, and we described the different things in the proposal that we're going to do. There would be black box fuzzing and also instrumented fuzzing, for example. Some manual code review as well to help with those things. Security testing, manual security testing. There's a lot of things. So I think the full details will be made public by the OpenSIPS community leaders, whatever. What do you call the people who are the lead developers and so on, right? But yeah, the idea is to identify, to put significant effort. Now you're upside down. Okay, you're back. So the idea
Sorry, my
is
phone has overheated. I got to switch the backup phone.
Well, welcome back.
You guys so hot.
Wow. slow down. So the idea is to put a significant effort on security testing and building ways to be able to test OpenSIPS, like in quality assurance methods. Like for example, we'd like to help to create the harness to allow OpenSIPS to be integrated in OSS Fuzz by Google. For example, where a lot of open source software is being fuzzed all the time, or that would be great. And that's our aim, because what we'll do is we will work on like what's needed, the initial stuff, right? And then the OpenSIPS developers can contribute that and integrate it together so that it can be added to the OSS Fuzz project and then be fuzzed using the cluster fuzz from Google, which is, of course, very ideal. And yeah, and so fuzzing, but not only fuzzing, also manual tests, some code review for both memory corruption issues and similar issues, and also logical issues. Things to do, like things related to authentication bypass, for example. Yeah, we're gonna make a lot of different techniques, make use of such different techniques, and it's like it's the same that we do with our clients, right? So we will have a certain amount of days that are dedicated to that. Yeah, in the end of the day, there will be, of course, the reports and also some code that we contribute. Yeah, should be quite interesting.
So when do you plan to start it? What is the kind of timelines or?
I think Bogdan suggested that there will be a crowdfunding campaign. So we're kind of, waiting on that. That's not something that I can do. But yeah, once, we make sure that this can be paid, of course, because we need to. We're providing a very, very special price, of course, because
very good.
It's not our it's not our normal rates, much lower, because it's a community effort, and also our report will be published, so that's kind of good for everyone, I think, including us. But of course, we need to get paid, because this is different from what we do when we publish an advisory for for any software. And I prepared to say something about that, actually. So where did I write that down? Yeah, so basically the difference between when we publish a security advisory for any other open source software is that it's usually the result of either one of two things, right? Either we're doing security research in our free time to learn about this new software project, maybe because we're interested in it, or to learn about the technology that it's implementing, or else to try a new vulnerability discovery technique, just to keep our skills sharp. So that's one way. And another reason would be during a client engagement, when the client would be using a particular software package and extensively, and therefore we decide to also test it extensively. But the thing is that neither of these combinations allow us to kind of dedicate, give it the sort of dedication that we do for the same thing when we do a client engagement. So, we dedicate a week, a month, sometimes 2 months on one particular project. That's very different from what we do when we usually issue an advisory. So that's kind of different. And that's, of course, such dedicated time and knowing that you can pay your bills at the same time while you're spending 2 months on something, or a month or so on something, or even a week, makes a huge difference what you can do in terms of security research, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You're pretty small, right? You're two guys, or is it more
2
now?
people, yeah.
2 people, yeah.
Nice. Oh, I was sure you are much more by the amount of work and the vulnerabilities you are exploring out there. I sure you have an army of yourselves there.
Those are minions.
Exactly.
That would be great, yeah, to have some minions.
So, how much of do you think from the CI perspective, and how do you see the perspective of real-time communication deployment and CI processes? How do you see them getting more oriented to the world of security? As I feel like all of the world of testing and CI should be much more involved with the testing environment, and important part of the CI should be already the penetration testing, because by default any change of code is a possibility to vulnerability. And How do you see the movement of the world from this perspective, especially in the real-time community development?
Well, I don't know about the world, but we're trying to do some effort in that area ourselves. I really don't know. I don't really see many other.
How much project do you know that running SIP visions testing as part of their CI?
Not zero, no, it's not zero,
No?
but it's close to zero.
There is one!
There you go, see? So there's one. The truth is, so there are definitely quality assurance processes that are using SIP-vicious. I just don't know about them, except when they come forward and tell us that they've been implementing SIP-vicious, the open source, in their CI/CD pipelines. And recently, we actually, in the open source version, we actually added the feature so that you get exit codes indicating if a security issue was found or not, or if there was a network problem, and so on. So based on the exit code, you can easily, you don't have to scrape the screen or whatever they were doing before, which I just don't like, right? It's really bad. So we implemented that, but we have had that in SIP-vicious Pro, of course, for quite a while now. And that's generating a lot of interest, of course. It's one of the things that are really, really cool about being able to embed something like that in an automated process. But how much, I don't know, apart from, of course, we do have some initial clients for SIP-vicious Pro. We're calling them members, by the way, because it's kind of more of a membership sort of thing. But yeah, I'm sure that there are much more that are using the open source SIP-vicious, but not that many.
I would say, from an open source perspective, it would be really nice to have some kind of even official Docker container that you can involve in any of your CI/CD implementation that will already do the basic testing that most of people doesn't do, and like the idea of really with Docker implementation and all of those nice new world that DevOps bring us, there is a lot of ability to automate those tests to make them being as a standard. Because if you are looking at me as a provider, as a commercial operator, if I will need to have a penetration tester running on each commit, one of my genius or stupid developers are getting into the code, I would be probably Benko. And I think and that's I think where I was coming in the beginning, the ability of automation testing is the ability of really making them economy, because otherwise it's very easy to spend as much money as you want on and get the most experienced security advisor that run the most vicious schools, but it's never the game. Yeah.
So I agree that a lot of things can be automated, don't get me wrong. But what we've seen in our work is that it's to get effective results. If you want to automate stuff, you need to automate it for the particular target. Okay, so because it seems to me that each target, each setup, each system that we test has different behaviors and so on. So I can't yet imagine a Docker image with SIP-vicious OSS doing a set of standard tests. It would just be crap. And I'm saying this because back in the days, I had done something like this. I had done an SaaS service called VoIP scanner.com. And it was, in my opinion, quite a failure because it didn't really find vulnerabilities in the legitimate targets that it tested. And it was abused a lot by people from your region and people from your region and
We are both in Ukraine, so but it's all good.
and we actually ended up losing not a lot of money, but some money because of the PayPal chargebacks. So I closed it, and it was a useless service. Unfortunately, I couldn't even feel that I didn't want to market it because if something doesn't work, it's not good. So long story short, generic scanning with SIP and voice over IP is either too dangerous to do or just too custom. So what we need to do, and what we're starting already to work on, is we're probably going to set up some Git repositories similar to what SIPI software has with the Alice and so on. The Alice Bob testing with what do you have? You have Camelio, OpenSIPS.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Asterisk. So something similar inspired from that, but using SIPVicious Pro to do certain tests in a safe environment, but specific for the different open source software targets that we will set up. And that's going to be very interesting. That makes more sense. I know many people keep telling me, oh yes, you should, turn this into a vulnerability scanner. I just, till now, I didn't yet figure out how to do a generic sort of VoIP vulnerability scanner because of all these different custom things. I mean, what do we do if you're using OAuth? You know what I mean?
Of course. No, but I'm saying even if again over the basic scenarios of Asterisk, Camelio, OpenSIPS, etc., even it's a part of the CI.
It sounds like a good idea.
Before it's going to the public,
I think it won't work. Based on my that's it. Yeah, I wish it were that easy.
Yeah, you don't think that there is any vulnerabilities that been closed and then got opened by the time because of wrong commit, that it could be saved them?
And that's why we're showing off CI/CD pipeline integration for both SIPVicious open source and also SIPVicious Pro. I think there's a lot of value in that, and it's an amazing thing to do. What all I'm saying is that we don't have a generic template that you can just apply.
So by the way, I think that each community, each one need to take care of its own, of course.
And it depends on the configuration a lot.
Of course, exactly. I think it's more about getting a framework of each service of each open source project to be able to manage his own vulnerability risk as part of his CI.
Then it's already a work in progress from our end.
Yeah, there is. Fortunately, Shlomi, it's not as easy. There is also a lot of reluctance, I would say. I mean, we had at least one big clash with the Camelio guys last year, trying to convince them to publish security. Well, advisory. And they're like, oh, we don't have anyone to do it. Like, it's nothing. Like, we don't.
No, but I think it's not a matter of who choose or who not. In the end, everyone will need, and they will need the best framework and the best community to be a part of it. And getting some kind of a basic level of SIP variability, and then on them add per project, and have some kind of, a very simple CI implementation
So
again,
from our end,
for me, it's like feeling that I'm doing now something in our company that shouldn't be done by us, but should be done as a community effort, especially from the security responsibility of all of us.
So from our end, I mean, I think we can do it ourselves, and we are already working on it. So, and then if the community wants to, fork or whatever, go ahead.
But again, give the community, each community its own folder to manage, as you will
exactly.
say.
Or that, and push PR and so on. That's totally. I think this is very, very doable, and we're already working on it.
It's to be a big call to action to all of the different projects to be a part of it too, and to get some kind of a standard.
But it's much easier for us at least to just go ahead and do it, see the reaction from each project, and then they can contribute with PR or give them some sort of access, whatever.
I think, by the way, it's as an integrator or a big user of a project, this is where I'm seeing as part of us responsibility as a business, as operation and business providers to take those kinds of tools that we're using and to invest a little bit more for them to get more audit and more security. And it's like, and I think that there is also a lot of willingness and, like today, if you will ask any big operators from the national wides that are using one of the proxies, the SIP proxies, if they want to contribute a little bit for it. And I think, by the way, I really like the idea from the getting a crowd banning and asking people for pay for it, because there is so many people that need this audit of OpenSIPS. But and again, it's something that all businesses that making money of OpenSIPS should be be part of founding it.
It makes a lot of sense for them to contribute. I've never done something like this. Luckily, it's not me who has to do it, but Bogdan and his crew.
But I'm saying, beside contributing money, again, if each one will have his own corner of contributing the code and contributing the application, and a little by little, I very much see the need of, involving the penetration testing as part of the CI deployment of open source projects.
Sure. I mean, something that I wanted to point out is that, of course, there is quite a difference between things that automated testing and what's done in a penetration test, which is kind of more of a manual thing, okay? I know a lot of developers use the word penetration test to refer to automated security testing, but technically that's not a penetration test. And the manual stuff, well, let's say where, you might run a scanner and it tells you, oh, everything is good, or it tells you, oh, you have this SSL, but whatever, these sort of security vulnerabilities that many of them that can be not real concerns in that particular scenario. They might be in others. But if you get a proper penetration test or some sort of security audit with people who know their stuff, that's very different. Because the thing is, as a security researcher or a pen tester and so on, you're getting feedback all the time, and you're making decisions based on that feedback. You're developing some new code to counter that what you learned now, and it's a whole learning process, right? both for the pen tester and, of course, for the developers, especially at the end of the exercise. But it usually that is what usually leads to the real security issues that, in the end, get exploited, especially when it comes to things that are targeted attacks. So, and security research that for security issues that are really impactful. Of course, you might have security issues that are really impactful that have been published and source code is available to exploit them. And then script kiddies, just download that source code and run it all over the internet. You can scan the internet in a few minutes or seconds nowadays. So that's, of course, a real risk. But yeah, it's very important, I think, to appreciate the manual work.
A little bit to explain what I think Sandro is getting at. I don't know if Sandro, you might be familiar with those guys, but I really enjoy watching some of the guys from physical penetration tests, guys doing presentation. Particular guy, I forgot his name, but he's very good explaining this. But basically, it's like when you buy like a lock and install it in your door. I mean, how you install it is really important. All those like gaps and the way you connect it. So you can have like secure lock, very good, which you cannot pick, but installed very unprofessionally, and you can pick it, I don't know, with a screwdriver. And that's what penetration test is about. And the same thing with the software, right? You might have like very secure, the best of best software product, but you just misconfigure it, like with that stupid certificate, which is in Git or something, and it's worthless, useless. So that's,
and that I could only notice it because I was watching the PCAPs, right? No security scanner would have found it because no one added a signature for that particular issue. I was watching the PCAP and I saw Lorenzo's, the Janus developer, old nickname, Rainmaker at Napoli.it. Ciao, Lorenzo. I was like, okay. What's Lorenzo doing on Slack? The TLS exchange, certificate exchange. So, and similarly, you have, a lot of security vulnerabilities that we find, and I suppose other security researchers find, are the result of analysis, intuition, feedback, learning, basically. And no software really, no. Most software
wait for GPT-4. GPT-4
definitely. Definitely. We're going to have so much spam in the...
do you see something, but on a serious note, do you see all this new technology, radically changing ways you do security things in, 10 years from now? Because now imagine you can have software which could, to some degree, understand the whole like OpenSIPS, something that no human can kind of can do in in like short time frame, and find some ways to exploit it.
I'm no expert on exploit.
I got it.
Expert. That's what I wanted to say, but it's getting late. Not that late yet. On machine learning, but my understanding is that this will definitely change the security industry. So far, most of the changes have been related to the buzzwords and so on. But I can see it changing. I'm not naive to think that the security industry, or at least the software won't be changed how we test things based on this.
Nice.
But I think, on the other hand, I think we will always have an interesting job, at least for the next 10 years. Hopefully I'll start retiring.
I will drink for that.
Here's some water.
Some tea for me. Cheers, guys. Cool. Well, that was pretty interesting. I just wanted to check with you specifically, Sandro, about OpenSIPIt. I'm making presentation next week at the IT Expo, so I was hoping to shop for some comments about the last event and what in your opinion went good, what did not go well, and how we can make it a little bit better.
I think in terms of what went well, lots. There was quite some progress. You could see the progress happening, from one day to the other, sort of, development of the modules and so on. It was kind of that was great. And it was really, really cool for us to test some of these things in an environment where we knew, okay, the developers themselves have set things up, So because when we do things in lab environment, we don't know if we're doing it right. You can try to follow the documentation, but for this sort of stuff, documentation is usually lacking. So yeah, it was really cool to see that, and to see also the different software projects, maybe not immediately, but eventually started. Many of them could talk these new RFCs, these new protocols that they had just implemented or started to. For us, what went right is also, finding certain security issues that I had a feeling would be there. I was like, yeah, that's where it is. Can we load dev random? Yep. Using, the stir shaken, what was it? The identity.
You killed few projects.
A few of them, yeah. So there was that. That was fun. What I think one improvement, but it's kind of difficult to make sure that it goes through, is that if everyone was more prepared from the software development, sort of the stage would have been, I think the quality of the testing would have been better. Everyone would have had more time to do more testing. But, I mean, it's already asking quite a bit for people to do almost live coding in some cases. So, yeah.
That's the fun of it, I guess. This part of it, get the people to do some of that.
Totally.
Okay, cool. Any particular RFCs that you think we should put forward?
I'm curious about the OAuth stuff, right, and the JWT tokens there. What RFC is that one? That's more than one RFC involved.
No. There is actually one specific that they did, send out of draft after we make the implementation. Let me see what it was.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. I don't know if you heard that story, Sandra, but Shlomi and his technical guy who was doing the implementation, you were scheduled to do a presentation, and I think on that day or day before, they actually approved it into RFC.
I see.
It's too good for coincidence.
It was the day after, 12 after it. It's 8055. It's like a bike.
Good. Yeah, I think that would be interesting because I remember, who was it? Oli, I think, Oli Johansson, who was also mentioning this and quite excited about that. But I don't think anyone added this to the Camelio stack, right?
No, not yet.
Not
No,
from
not
what
yet.
I heard.
Not yet. But yeah, it would be really cool to see some implementations, and maybe if they can communicate with each other and all authenticate using different.
Yeah. Well, at least Shlomi mentioned they have JavaScript part for some of that.
That makes a lot of sense.
So at least there are two.
Yeah. We can actually make again free switch and asterisk applicational implementation of it, and we'll be happy to publish it even before, so we can get it. We will try get ready.
Yeah.
I think from our end, I think we should be able to add that relatively easily on Subvicious Pro. So we're adding stuff to the experimental version. We're not pushing that out to our members, but yeah, this is cool stuff because we can obviously do fuzzing there.
Yeah.
Because there's always stuff like you've got you're gonna have the JWT, the JSON formatting. You're gonna have the base64. You're gonna have inside the JWT the each value, and so on. These are all being parsed in different places. You might have authentication bypass, for all I know, for any reason, and that's something that could be detected using fuzzing, but it's a bit tricky. We cannot do that easily in OpenSIPIt because we would need to add something to OpenSIPS to detect that there was an authentication bypass, maybe. Sometimes, if we just get it to 100, okay, that's cool. But sometimes it's not that easy, right? Sometimes you get a 403 or whatever, but it was an authentication bypass. Just you need to modify something that the fuzzer didn't fix, but you get an indication. There's a lot of, and this comes back to the penetration tester sort of stuff, right? The manual sort of stuff. Automating with fuzzing is great, and that it works really, really well when it comes to crashes, because there's no arguing about a crash. Right? It's dead.
Crash is bad. I think Shlomi mentioned this as some of his experience. He said there was some bug which caused basically the request was replicated between distributed servers. And so basically one request could crash the whole network.
Exactly.
Because, get the
on
one
a specific
goes down and you get stuck at
And quite often it's the thing that is supposed to be a security device or security protection gateway that does all of that, crashes, or and when that goes down, like recently, right? There was a problem with ProLexic, I think, the Akamai DDoS protection, and they brought down a portion of the internet, right? And then it's kind of, thank you for your security.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it.
It's like disease.
You cannot always win.
That's by design.
Yeah. Well, it's good. It's good job security for you, Sandro.
Yeah, for sure. As
long as there is communication,
nice.
you'll get something to do.
That's what I'm banking on, that humans will always need to communicate, and therefore they might need secure communications, and therefore it should be okay.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, you're in a promising business. So
were you guys going to speak this year Any plans for any presentations? I believe, Sandro, you're IT Expo, right? Doing IT Expo.
No,
No, you don't? Okay.
no one invited me. I didn't know about it until recently.
Yeah, actually, David is organizing, David Duffett, and he did pretty good job. For some reason, I assumed he also invited you, but yeah.
No, it's good that he didn't. I don't have anything immediately to present. So.
Okay. What about Glucon?
Yeah, Glucon. That's the one I have submitted a presentation.
Oh, you did? Okay. And there is OpenSIPS Summit. I have not even submitted mine yet.
Yeah,
Have you?
yeah. I've been no. I'm bad boy.
Yeah, 2 weeks, guys. 2 weeks.
I know. I'm trying to think of something, but something that we can actually publish.
You can always change that later.
That's not very fair.
Yes.
There are a couple of conferences, yeah, but I have not just to click on. There is the IIT RTC conference and expo. It's kind of more.
Yeah. Actually, now I got an idea. Maybe I will do about doing like an overview of a different security modules and just doing an overview of security tools inside the OpenSIPS modules. I think it's something
that's useful.
That nobody we are each one. There is more and more modules, but a lot of new developers that don't even know how to connect them all. So between all of the even like the peak, the pike, and all of the limit rate and
maybe some of the new ones as well, if there are any new ones. I think I know that in Camellia there were some new ones. I don't know if in OpenSIPS there were some new ones that are related to security, like specifically for.
Yeah. So to do like an overview on those. Yeah,
that would be cool.
Good.
There's also Astricon in September. I don't have anything for them yet. I do have an idea, but I did not submit. I think Astricon is kind of not virtual, right? So it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
No, maybe I haven't looked into that.
All right. I need to jump.
Yeah. Probably need to wrap up. Well, it was pretty good conversation. I think. Hopefully useful for everyone to some degree.
It
was very nice to see you again, Sandro and Shlomi, obviously.
Same here.
We'll probably see you later someday.
All right.
Be in touch, guys.
Speak soon.
Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah,
Ciao.
Yeah. Thanks, Internet, for watching. We'll be back.
Thank you so much.
See you guys.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.